We'll get started a minute early here. I don't know, it feels like it's been a minute. All right, so we have a number of policies today. This feels like a bigger number than usual, Michael.
Well, we have, because we had one that was tabled, GBEE, and then at our last board meeting, we discussed IJOA, so.
So with GBEE, I have thought more about it. I'm still not sure what that legal case is that's connected to. Like, I don't see the connection there. I don't know why that's there. I don't know if you had learned anything on that or not.
No, it's just a historic, based on the history, we believe that the policy was put into place because of the situation that was happening at the time.
Okay.
And Kim did look into other school districts, a handful of other districts, to see if they have this policy. They do not. It's not the School Board Association, it doesn't have a sample policy, so if we want to just remove it, we could do so.
So I did kind of read through it, and I don't necessarily think it's a bad idea to have something like this.
Yeah.
Online, so I sort of, I didn't forget about everything that we said the last time, but I sort of looked at it with sort of a renewed, like, hey, let's look at this with just like a fresh sheet of paper here. So completely taking away that legal case that's associated with this. One of the things that I sort of was thinking about in some of these bullet points, so I see that an employee shall not participate or provide financial
remuneration.
Thank you. It's been a long day. In outside activities wherein their position on the staff shall inappropriately used to sell goods or services to students or their parents. I would feel like maybe we should include or the district in that. So, like, if you have someone who maybe has like a landscaping business on the side, they can't necessarily. Let's say they're a teacher, but they have like a side landscaping business. I don't even know.
That could be.
Right. Would they be able to sell their services to the school?
So are you recommending then we would, on line 9?
I just wanted to kind of open it for discussion.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
so that was just
point.
something that I wanted to throw out there as something that I saw as missing.
Services to students, their parents, or the district.
But if they have a legitimate business, why couldn't they participate in a formal bidding process?
So this is talking about their position is inappropriately used. They could participate in the bidding, in going out to bid, but this is the inappropriately used to sell their goods or services. So if they if this teacher went to one of the principals and said, hey, so, or I don't know.
Because there wouldn't be any quid pro quo from a teacher to an administrator. It'd be more the other way around.
Okay. I don't know. It was just something I saw and I wanted to talk through. So.
I still feel like this is a laundry list of things that don't connect. Like, I agree, an employee should not be formally evaluated by a member of their family.
I agree with that
So
too.
is there's gotta be, we have no other conflict of interest policies or,
This is it.
Because I do think that, especially like that one, I think that's a good thing to have. Like, I think that, and I feel like that is definitely a possibility at some point, potentially, like, or
the one. It's a very interesting, like, the way it's kind of all.
it's an interesting compilation of bullet points.
Right.
In 7 through 9, just the word inappropriately used, who defines
Right,
what
what
that
does that
is?
mean?
Right.
Yeah. So. And this is also just a very small thing, but on line 14, it says the school, but I think it should be Shaker Regional School District. Served by the school to which they are assigned. Instead of maybe the school to which they are assigned, but
That's either way, it's Shaker Regional.
And do we even allow a supervisor to supervise a member of their family?
No.
So it feels like that is a non-issue.
So as far as lines 13 to 15, the only thing that comes to mind for me is teachers pay teachers. And they could put something on the teachers pay teachers site. And if one of their fellow teachers wishes to purchase that, are they gonna say, no, you can't because we work in the same district or the same school? The solicit part I understand.
Would that be for personal gain?
When you say pay on, yes, when you sell a curriculum or whatever on teacher pay teacher, you get the money.
Yeah.
So they may have a great idea they're using in their classroom, they put it on teachers pay teachers. I'm not even sure they know who's buying the stuff.
I had no idea that site even existed.
Oh.
It's huge
Very
now.
valuable.
It's a very,
Yeah, I had
Huge.
no idea that site even existed.
Yeah, it's huge.
Great resource for our teachers.
Mm-hmm.
And along with that, so number 17 through 18. Do all teachers get approval before they send out class lists for Valentine's Day, for parties? Like, is that already happening? Because it says, shall not provide lists with names of students.
Or parents to anyone for purposes not approved by the superintendent. Or are you approving all of this?
Yeah.
I mean, I do
don't
know
really
I
get
can
involved with
I
that
can only,
process.
we do have a policy around this. We can send out their first names.
Yeah,
But I'm just wondering, like, only because we have it, is that happening?
no, it's not.
I would imagine a lot of people don't know it's there.
Right.
All right, so what do we want to do with this one? I do think there are some very good points in here. But I don't know that they're necessarily laid out exactly correctly.
It's not a cohesive list.
Yeah.
And is your district's policy under like confidential information or something?
Yeah, it's not like this.
So just,
It's around, around student information.
right,
Which we have. What if we are gonna keep this policy, what if we keep it simple with lines 3 through 5?
I mean, that
So you don't
is
have this
the
laundry list.
essence of what, it's really the financial conflict of interest. Though it does add in 17 through 19.
I think I like that idea, just to keep it broad. We can always revisit this, but again, this list just feels like it's kind of a list that was maybe a couple of these instances happened and they
They're
got,
specific.
yeah.
Yeah,
So it was drafted because of a specific situation.
something must have happened in
Yeah.
2000. Well, that's when it was
I
brought to.
know, I know.
So 25 years ago.
Yeah, and 19 is really incorporated in lines 3 through 5. Because it's a financial interest. If you're evaluating someone, a family member. Yep.
So strike lines, the end of line 5 through 19?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so.
And remove the footnote with the case?
I am still confused as to why that was
Yeah, I'm not
attached.
sure either.
I read through the entire thing. I did not see,
Anything?
like, nothing that would correlate to a school district, like. on that one? All right, the next one, GBGD. The only thing I had for this one was to link the rules and procedures.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I asked. Oh, do we have them soon, so?
All right.
Because they added their procedures in.
I know, I went and I looked at
Right.
the rules and procedures and
I was like-
it's essentially the same thing, it's
Right.
just split into two. Okay, GBI.
I feel like the piece we're missing, unless I'm reading it wrong, is RSA 65944A. So it's the last 3 paragraphs on the School Boards Association. Which looks like that was done after our. So it has to do with electioneering.
Yeah.
Because they last revised this 2017, and our last look was 2016.
For 2021, so last review.
For them?
Either way.
Yeah. But not for us, right?
No, not for us. We haven't revised it since 2015. The only other thing that I noticed there is that on lines 10 through 11, we have employees will not misrepresent their political views as those of the Shaker Regional School District. Item number 1 on line 14 talks about that, so I feel like it's just redundant to have it in there twice.
So strike through that sentence?
Yeah.
9 and 10?
Because it's in number 1.
It's 10 and 11. The employees will not misrepresent their political views as those of the Shaker Regional School District, because it is. It's item number 1 under the examples.
But I liked the last 3 paragraphs
I did too.
of the School Boards Association, which is all about electioneering.
Okay.
That's all.
It's funny, the School Boards Association policy does that same thing, talks about employees will not represent their political views as those of the school district, and then bullet
I
points
saw
that.
that too. Lawyers make mistakes sometimes.
They don't have Alice.
Let's.
That's true. We'll keep Alice.
Yeah.
All right, then we can move on to JBJ. And I actually didn't have anything for this one other than we need to link the rules and procedures, which.
Yeah. That's, I didn't, okay.
And for GBJA, I didn't have anything.
Seems fine.
Okay. I feels like there's enough laws around that.
And it really follows School Boards
It did.
Association.
See, this is why we have a lengthy list. We're just going right through them, check them off.
All right, so the next up is JBK. And I will say, again, the link the rules and procedures. My only concern here with this this one. And again, I feel like it's just a discussion, not because this is a thing that's happened, but my concern here is that it doesn't actually allow for an avenue for reporting if the issue is with the superintendent. So that to me felt like a single point of failure.
I also,
Handbook.
It's in the handbook?
it shouldn't be in policy.
Probably.
I guess it would be considered policy because the school board approves the staff handbook. But we can add it in here.
I don't know off the top of my head what it says in the handbooks. Do you happen to know that information? Okay. But yeah, that was the only thing that stuck out to me. Not because there is anything like that, but there's no reporting structure for if that is what happens.
Well, but I also wondered about if a staff has an issue with the building principal, do they have to go to the building principal?
So based on this policy, yes, it can't go to the superintendent without going to the principal.
Again, that's what the handbook talks about, that if it's with the building principal, it goes to the superintendent.
Really, we should mirror what we have in the handbook.
I agree.
Because otherwise it's a mismatch in
Yeah.
some ways.
And that is not great.
It's either the handbook or the CBA. One of them talks about if it's the superintendent, then it goes
Okay.
where it goes. If it's the
So it
principal, where
does say
goes.
you follow the CBA, but
Well, it talks about the CBA for, I mean, the principal and the superintendent wouldn't fall under the CBA, right? So,
Laid out in the rules of procedures.
I didn't either, actually. I should have. I know. I was gonna say there's so there is here when we're talking a lot of this deals with the collective bargaining agreement. So the majority of this looks like it is the grievance process for the collective bargaining agreement. Oh wait, no, there is a part for grievances process for non-bargaining employees. So again, it says they have to go to their principal and then the superintendent. So I think we should probably mirror whatever we have in the handbooks. If this is addressed in the handbooks.
So that's under employees.
I am looking it up. I'm gonna have to do more research to find it. I know I've seen it and where it talks about it, so.
This grievance is all Title IX.
And that's fine if we need to do some more research to make
Yeah.
sure that they align,
Yeah.
that's absolutely fine. We can, should we table this then?
I think so.
Okay.
Because we couldn't really move it forward till we see
Not
language.
until we have the ability to align it with, you know. Everything and all of it.
And that's specific to complaints. Specific to the superintendent.
Because I don't know how we would bring this to the New Hampshire School Boards Association, but theirs is very, very similar too.
Yeah,
They don't
it's-
have these processes in place in their policy either. So I don't know if they just, it's entirely possible that they just sort of put that back on each district to do however they, you know, think it should work, but that, I feel like maybe a flaw.
Yeah, I agree to table it to see if we can align with the staff handbook, but also to see what we can do some wording and wanting to less complaint involves the superintendent.
It's also,
But-
it's also building principles.
Right. So I
Yeah.
think we should bring in an alignment with whatever we have to staff handbook.
Yeah, I know I've read it very specifically, so. Find it.
I have to go. Just, you know, wanted to bring it up. All right, so GCAA, you have marked for removal. Do you mind just talking us through why?
So back in the day, that was a requirement. We had to hire teaching staff who were considered highly qualified. That is no longer a requirement, therefore there's no need for this policy. The School Board Association doesn't have this as a separate policy, it is a requirement.
So does that ESSA Act not exist anymore?
The way ours is worded, doesn't specifically identify highly qualified teachers, because we are able to hire teachers based on what are known as site-based learning plans. That doesn't fit the highly qualified definition that used to be. So it's just a policy, it's not necessary, it doesn't follow the current practices and requirements that the DOE has to hire.
Okay. I was just curious because it seems like a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were new too.
Okay. All right. Then I'm good with that. I just wanted to. Oh well. Are you good with that?
Yeah.
Next up is GCCBC. And for this, again, linking the rules and procedures, and that was all I had for that one. I know, but it's in the rules. and
No, I know.
procedures.
I know, it just, when I
We
read
just
it, I'm
split it
like,
into two documents.
I know.
All right, and GCF, I did not have any notes for that one. Also.
Oh, so I did. I liked how the School Boards Association, well, actually, I wanted a combo because I think this is true. This is true, but I liked the piece around the fact that I liked laying out that we get a slate of teachers by whatever, I don't know, by April 15th, and that's not part of our policy. So I kind of liked that it was, yes, we do that, but it makes me think individual teachers, but we also, every year, you bring a slate of teachers. And somebody reading our policy would note that.
So add that one sentence, our first sentence of the School Board Association, that's how they phrase it.
Yes.
The first and second one, is that right?
Yeah, one paragraph.
April 15th is late though, because that's when you have to notify them that you're not going to.
On or before.
Well,
It says on or before.
And all they're
It
doing,
does, but
all they're doing is citing the statute.
So it's, yeah.
We're required to do that by law.
So I just think it makes it clearer to say there are, either way, you bring us individual people and then we do a slate. Okay. However you organize that into the. You don't think so?
Yeah, and it's, again, it's in the statute. I was just wondering if it would, how it would impact bringing individual teachers forward to the board
I
throughout the
wanted-
school year.
I wanted both.
Yeah.
So my note was, indicate that, I didn't have language, I didn't write language, but that there's the initial hires that always go to the board throughout the whole year, and then there's a slate of nominations.
Yeah, so that would just, we could add the first two sentences of the first paragraph in the School Board Association. That would lay it
Yeah.
out.
Because I actually like hours. I like hours sentences 3 and 4. I just want to.
Next up is IJOA. So, I do think that this is a very comprehensive field trips and excursions policy here. I did notice that it excludes the scheduled competitive events. It calls it out. Is that information elsewhere?
What do you mean? Is it-
So like, I'm thinking in my head, because this is so top of mind right now, is robotics. Aren't they going to, I don't know if it's worlds or nationals or,
Line 39.
Yeah, so those would be considered already scheduled events,
okay,
scheduled competitive events for robotics, because those happen every year.
okay.
Yeah, but
Is it scheduled if they have to qualify?
The way I'm seeing that is that if it happens every year, the process to get to those nationals or those worlds,
well,
those
okay,
are all
but
scheduled.
what about, and I don't have an issue with this, but what about going to Maine for the night? You don't have to go to Maine for the night for a competition, but you choose to go to Maine for the night. I don't, again, it's not because I have an issue with robotics or, somebody playing in a tournament in Vermont for 2 nights. That's not the issue, but I think the issue is what do we consider scheduled competitive events?
Yeah, that could vary.
Well, yeah, that's kind of,
Right.
so I'm not entirely sure what to do about that. I think,
not sure. The only, it's definitely would like your feedback on that. The only suggestion I have looking at this is what came up at our board meeting when I said that it contradicts, our policy contradicts itself, was that strike through on line 50. Because overnight trips, it says approval. by the board
International trips would
superintendent.
typically be overnight.
Yeah, but the overnight trip section doesn't require board approval.
Right.
So then we
My
go down
question.
to international
Oh.
travel, it says approval of overnight and international travel must be approved by the board, so it contradicts the paragraph prior.
Right. We continue to approve those things. They come to us, but they're not in here. And I'm just curious too, what, like I'm thinking of Camp Cody, I don't know that that's ever come to us.
Oh, it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like, has it come already?
I believe so,
Maybe
yes.
But I'm like thinking, as of this, it doesn't need to be
Right.
approved. It's only international.
Yeah,
So
that's
why are we
true.
approving, we don't, or should we be? I mean, I do think we should, but.
So why do we even say exclusive of scheduled competitive events on 39 and 40?
We originally added that wording in there for the purpose of a team qualifies for, the next phase of competition, and there wasn't enough time to bring it to the board for approval. That's what we were running up against in the past.
Okay.
You qualify to go to nationals and you only have a week to go, or whatever that might be. I remember putting that wording in there because we were running into issues.
Because
where
of
we
line
had-
50?
Yes.
Because of the approval of overnight?
But it was also because there wasn't enough time to bring it to the board for approval.
But it's like band had to be approved and they were going to Florida for the night. I mean, for competition.
I guess we just need to decide on how involved the board wants to be in the approval process. You can understand international travel,
Right.
but overnight travel or out-of-state travel, we could keep that to the principal and superintendent.
I think I'm fine with that. I definitely do think that international travel should come to the board, absolutely. I
can see both sides.
Right.
Certainly don't want to be holding up somebody from being able to go somewhere if they need to go.
Or if they're qualified for something that.
Right.
So we could strike the exclusive of scheduled competitive events as well as that on line 39 into 40, and the strike through on line 50 that we've already put in there. Get rid of overnight and. That would leave the board would be approving any international travel. All other travel would be approved by the building principal or the superintendent.
I'm sorry, one more time?
So if we take out exclusive of scheduled competitive events under overnight trips, now you're just talking about any overnight trip. Needs the principal and superintendent approval. That would include competitions. And if we strike through line 50 where it says approval of overnight and international, so we get rid of overnight and, that means that the board is only involved in approval of international travel. All other approvals go through the principal and the superintendent. which is really the case now.
I don't know, I'm playing cultural.
I think we're all right there. I think we're both just.
Just trying to like, do we, not that I don't, do we want to approve when our students are on a trip staying out of state?
Again, that's the question, how involved does the board want to be with that?
Coming from other boxes.
And if the board's not going to approve overnight trips, do you even need that at all? Because doesn't that fall under the co-curricular and extracurricular trips?
Oh, my spot checking.
No, you would need, because it's co-curricular, extracurricular trips, but let's say we have fourth grade that is going to spend the night at the Science Museum in Boston. That's an overnight trip.
Right. But then why say including co-curricular and extra, just say overnight trips?
That's true.
Right.
Yep.
Exclusive of international.
No.
Because international's over, international would be overnight.
Yeah, I agree that we could definitely strike the including co-curricular and extra, basically the majority of line 39 in the first two words of 40.
The School Boards Association, must have something.
Do they? It doesn't look like it's on this. Okay.
No, we didn't pull the sample policy from the School Board Association
you
because
just-
we knew we wanted to just address this specific issue.
I'm just trying to think if there's, what would be the reason that we would need to approve out-of-state trips? Overnight.
There isn't.
Yeah,
There
Yeah.
isn't a reason.
okay.
You can understand why the international travel piece, because things can be happening.
There's other factors.
Yeah. And that takes significant planning too.
Um, um, and then they knocked
I think I can be okay with that as well.
I think, do we have to address the other pieces of this though? Which really had to do with,
Are you on the rules and procedures?
I don't know, yeah.
Yeah, so page 4 of the rules and procedures, we would have to look at the process for approval. I threw in a new wording in there, exclusive of scheduled competitive events, but if we get rid of that, we don't need that
Yeah.
in there.
I was just gonna say, I saw that and now it contradicts what we
Yep.
said.
Yeah. I think we have to, the piece I think was also kicked to us is this whole, when you're a coach.
I think that falls more under DKC. I did some,
What's DKC?
it's the, it's like vouchers and approval. The expense reimbursements for the coaches and stuff. Well, finish your thought and then I'll go with where my brain went.
So, I think part of it is I'm trying to figure out, are we considering them a chaperone? Or are we considering them, you can't go unless you have? Did you see what I mean? Like, I understand what you're saying, but this all talks about chaperones will need to fund their blah, blah. This says chaperone costs may be defrayed through participation in fundraising efforts, which I don't know.
Can I
if we
ask where
do.
you are in this stuff?
Rules and
Page one,
procedures, page
rules and
1,
procedures.
2.1.6.
Sorry. Sorry.
You had that right at the ready.
That's because I knew this was gonna come up and I asked Debbie, where is that in policy? And she's like, 2.1.6.
So I think for me, the challenge is, are coaches the same as chaperones?
Do you want to define them? I don't.
Well, I think that our problem though is that this says chaperone costs may be defrayed through participation in fundraising efforts, which I'm assuming would go into the student activities account. But I thought I heard that the student activities account couldn't be used to help pay for chaperones.
That was my understanding as well.
So that, if that's true, then that's inconsistent.
If the fundraising discloses that it's paying the costs. But we've had instances where it's like, can we just use the money from that account to pay for the chaperone? No, that wasn't the purpose of the fundraising that was disclosed.
If you're fundraising for a basketball trip for, I don't know, because they got in New England, I'm making this up, I have no idea. You can use robotics too, it doesn't really matter, but if you're raising for the program, or robotics is raising for the program, it's not specific, you're raising for that program. Like, I'm not contributing to a robotics fundraiser or a basketball fundraiser for the kids to go X, Y, and Z. It's in their the basketball student activities account. So how are I just think we have to be consistent. Because people don't, I mean, I guess if you're fundraising to go to Worlds, that's a separate discussion. But if you're fundraising for the student activity, what do you have to disclose?
The purpose of the funds that you're raising.
Which is to support the program.
To
Which
support
is
the
super-
program, you could say including.
Inclusive of chaperone travel.
If that's
that was
disclosed, then yes.
So not for anything, but nobody does that. And I am not sure that it's consistently being implemented in the same way across everything.
I'm also not sure that messaging is clear on that, because I don't think that that's something that people are aware of when they are raising funds to go to Worlds or championships or whatever. I don't think that information has been communicated in a way that anyone was aware of it.
So,
The only The only question that's come up specifically with robotics competitions, we haven't really heard of concerns or questions around chaperones or coaches that are attending anything other than robotics.
Well, only just because it hasn't come up doesn't mean that, or come to our level, doesn't mean that it hasn't been.
No,
I'm
agree.
just saying I've seen inconsistent, even on the band trip, the amount of money that was going, last year, that was going out the door personally, not knowing about reimbursement and things, which things did get reimbursed, I don't know how much. And I'm not saying anything, it's just there seems to be this unsureness. I'm gonna call it unsureness.
So then from a parent perspective, how can we make that more clear for people?
I just think maybe we should give people language that they need to use on their fundraisers. I'm totally
Maybe
making
we
this up, but-
include some language somewhere, either in the rules and procedures or in the policy, probably in the rules and procedures, that if you are fundraising for a specific purpose that requires chaperones, then that verbiage needs to be included in whatever information is put out about the fundraiser.
But I think it also has to be beyond just a chaperone, because a
Correct.
teacher
And
who's.
coaches,
A
correct.
coach who, I mean,
Correct.
if this teacher bringing the group to France, or are they
Right.
expected
Yes.
to pay their own way as they're leading it? Which
Right.
they may be, I don't know.
I don't know the answer to that either.
So, yeah, I think that sorry, I completely forgot the teacher portion of it, which I shouldn't have, but chaperones, teachers, coaches, if you are fundraising for the purposes of travel for these individuals as well, it needs to be explicitly stated.
So how about we table the rules and procedures at
Okay.
this point? In order to develop some of that language.
Okay.
So I think that should go on rules and procedures. But I think in order to get something moving here, though, that page 4, that co-curricular and extracurricular trips, that does not align with the policy itself.
I'm sorry.
On page 4,
Of the
Number-
rules and procedures?
Number 3 of the rules and procedures.
I'm
Where
sorry,
are you?
page 4, under D,
You're not in rules and procedures.
I am in rules and procedures, page 4,
The timeline.
process for approval,
Oh, D,
under the timeline,
Okay.
which is D.
yeah.
2 does not align with the policy itself, even as it's written now without any changes.
This timeline, co-curricular, code approval. Well, didn't we just take that out?
Yeah, and it wasn't actually part of the process in the first place. So you could have co-curricular and extracurricular trips,
That we,
but you didn't
Oh,
have to
this
even
is it.
approve. That would be everything.
oh yeah, that should
And what did we agree on? Was it the building principal and the superintendent?
For overnight trips.
For
Yeah.
overnight? Okay.
Co-curricular already states, co-curricular and extracurricular trips, approvals granted by the building principal and the superintendent.
So number 2 could come out, right?
Yep,
But then for overnight trips,
30 days.
30 days for that would be
Approval process for the principal and the superintendent.
an international travel of 6. Do we need to, there's permission to plan and then permission to travel.
That's an international only.
Right, I'm looking at number 4. And is 6 months enough to do permission to plan and permission to travel?
Let's make sure.
I'm just making sure it's consistent.
Yeah, I would say that's probably too short of a window. We should change that to 12 months. So you're starting to get permission to plan a year in advance.
Yeah. Yeah, that would make more sense, because even that same section about fundraising, that you shouldn't be fundraising before, and a lot of these groups start fundraising well before 6 months.
Right.
So we'll change that to 12 months and strike line 2.
Yes.
Can I go back and ask a question about chaperones?
Sure.
Are we going to try to determine the ratio of chaperones to students? Or are we gonna say any adult that goes, we're gonna consider them a chaperone?
Isn't the ratio outlined somewhere in here?
I did see something.
Because you may have two parents decide they want to go to Worlds, 2 parents for every child, let's do fundraising, and everyone gets to get paid for it.
So, I think it, I feel like I saw this. How it's outlined that chaperones. Don't chaperones also need to be approved as well? So it can't just be like 2 parents who said, hey, I want to go to Worlds. They both would have to be like approved, correct?
On the, as fingerprinted?
Yes.
Because you don't approve individual chaperones, we just have to make sure that they're on the approved volunteer list. It would not be
Right.
unusual to have both parents on the approved
Right,
list.
but that's what you're saying is we,
You approve them, but if you have 4 children going to Worlds and 2 parents per child decide they want to go, are you going to pay for the 8 parents if they do the fundraising for 4 students? So what are you counting as chaperone?
That may be something we need to talk about when we bring rules and procedures back.
Yeah, should be part of the conversation when we're.
because you're right, I mean, we don't want to pay
Right.
for more chaperones than students.
And you don't need a 1-to-1 chaperone either.
Right. Right.
Whatever the, we should look up what's the required.
I really thought I read something about how it breaks down. I don't know, I thought it was in here, I guess it's not.
There must be something somewhere, because how do people decide how many chaperones they have to
It
have?
just says the number of chaperones needed shall be determined by the age of the student and the nature of the trip, so it can be broad.
Yeah.
More than that. I just,
Well, so we clearly have more work to do on IJOA. We'll table that to our next meeting. Policy IJOA, we could bring to the full board for approval on
I
those
think we're good
amendments.
on the policy, but
Okay.
yes, the rules and procedures need more time.
All right.
you could, but I wouldn't be surprised if people ask what are the rules and procedures.
Yeah, so honestly, it just makes a pass.
Yeah.
At this point without the rules and procedures.
I just,
Jackson quite well saved.
But that's,
I don't think we need to hang up the policy because doing that overnight and under international travel contradicts.
yeah.
I'm fine with it, yeah, it's fine.
So the policy itself and rules and procedures will have to go to the board for approval. So you can work that out through this.
Right, so therein lies the, as long as you're, because technically if we approve the policy, you can do whatever you want.
Do that.
I know. I was just
I'm
pointing
relying on this
out,
committee to come up with words.
I'm pointing out the obvious.
It's true.
But just to make it clear that,
Absolutely. Strike right through all of it.
that's right. You'd say, how did it all
20
go?
chaperones
Based
are
on
off.
superintendent approval.
Exactly.
Period.
So, yeah, that's fine.
I'm all set with that.
He's done with us.
Exactly. It's like, oh.
It's good.
Okay. So, we're done.
I get a 10.